Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I welcome you all on the behalf of the Urology Department. My name is Hassan Raza Asghar, and today we are going to proceed with the previous topic that we have started in the last lecture. That was the urological emergencies, and today we are going to cover a new topic, that is acute scrotum. So, as we have already mentioned and we have already discussed about the urological emergencies like hematuria, renal colic, and urinary retention in the previous lecture, today we are going to start with the acute scrotum. So, emergency situation that requires prompt evaluation, differential diagnosis, and potentially immediate surgical exploration is called an acute scrotum. So, what is the differential diagnosis of acute scrotum? So, it can be torsion of the spermatic cord, it can be torsion of the appendix testes, it can be torsion of the appendix epididymis, or it can be simply epididymitis, epidydmorchitis, inguinal hernias, communicating hydrocele, simple hydrocele, hydrocele of the cord, or trauma or insect bite, dermatological reasons, inflammatory vasculitis, and idiopathic scrotal edema. And the other common differentials include tumor, spermatocele, varicocele, and non-urogenital pathologies like adductor tendinitis. So this is a long list of the acute scrotum that we can encounter in case of the acute or subacute scrotum. So in this list, you can find that there are certain entities that you have already discussed from the general surgery, that is inguinal hernias, hydrocele, hydrocele of the cart, and dermatological reasons. But the most important that we are going to discuss in today's lecture is this torsion of the spermatic cord, that is testicular, what we call as testicular torsion. So here you can see that if you find an acute scrotum, then you can have the major differentials like torsion of the spermatic cord, or torsion of the testicular and epididymal appendages, or it can be simple epidydmorchitis. Epidydmorchitis is most common, whereas the torsion of the spermatic cord and torsion of the testicular and epididymal appendages is relatively less common. Here is a diagrammatic representation of the intravaginal and extravaginal torsion. Basically, the torsion of the spermatic cord is divided into two broad categories. One is the intravaginal torsion, and the other is extravaginal torsion. Intravaginal torsion that occurs inside the tunica vaginalis. As you already know that the tunica vaginalis has got two layers, the visceral and parietal layer of the tunica vaginalis. If this torsion of the spermatic cord occurs inside the tunica vaginalis, then it is called intravaginal torsion, whereas if this torsion occurs outside the tunica vaginalis, then it is called extravaginal torsion. So these are the two broad categories of intra and extravaginal torsion. Inside the tunica vaginalis or outside the tunica vaginalis. So torsion of the spermatic cord, two broad categories, intravaginal and extravaginal torsion. So let's discuss about the main pathology. So torsion of the spermatic cord, which is intravaginal in type, it has got true surgical emergency of the highest order. It is irreversible because it leads to the irreversible ischemic injury to the testicular parenchyma. May begin as soon as 4 hours after the torsion. So, whenever the time, as soon as the time passes, the testicular salvage decreases. In other words, you can say that if the patient is having symptoms for more than 4 hours, then sometime when you explore the testis is already has got ischemic necrosis, and you will have to just do the orchiectomy. You will have to remove the testis because it has undergone the ischemic necrosis. In this figure, you can appreciate that this is the normal Pampiniform plexus and testicular artery and vas that is going into the through this superficial inguinal ring and going into the inguinal canal. And this is the normal testis, and this is the epididymis. So here you can appreciate that the testis is of normal, bright, brilliant white, shining surface, and this is the normal vascular supply, normal pedicle of the testis. Here you can appreciate that the testis has rotated on its pedicle, and testis has rotated on its pedicle, and you can see appreciate the twist that is present over here on the spermatic cord, and you can appreciate the color has been changed. The epididymis is now red. The testis is dull. So this torsion leads to the ischemia and ultimately the ischemic necrosis of the testis. So it is an irreversible procedure. That is, once the ischemic injury has occurred, then the kidney has gone into permanent damage. Then you cannot make it revived again. It means that it has been permanently damaged. So the only way left in that condition is that we will go for orchiectomy. So how does a patient with the testicular torsion presents? So the most common symptom that a patient feels is acute onset of severe scrotal pain. That is acute onset of pain, sudden. Majority of patients present with the history of prior episodes of severe self-limited scrotal pain and swelling. And this pain is referred to the ipsilateral lower quadrant of the abdomen. Dysuria and other bladder symptoms are usually absent. So the patient usually presents with the acute sudden onset of severe pain, that is self-limited scrotal pain, and it is also associated mostly with the swelling of the ipsilateral testis. So what are the signs that you can elicit on the physical examination? You can see that the affected testis is present higher in the scrotum, and it is present in the transverse orientation. Really, the testis is present in the vertical dimension, that is the long axis is vertically, whereas short axis is horizontal. So in this case, in which the testis is having torsion of the testis, the affected testis is lying high, and it is present in the transverse orientation. Patient may also present with acute hydrocele, that is the reactionary fluid due to this ischemia, or massive scrotal edema. So this is the second sign in which the patient has developed hydrocele and also has developed the scrotal edema. Cremasteric reflex is absent. That is, if you stroke the medial aspect of the thigh, if you make a stroke on the medial aspect of the thigh, then you will find that the testis is not rising. Whereas normally, if you stroke the medial aspect of the thigh, then you can see the testis moving upward. This is called cremasteric reflex, and this is due to the cremasteric muscles. So upon in a patient with the torsion of the spermatic cord or torsion of the testes, if you stroke the medial aspect of the thigh, the ipsilateral testis will not rise. This is called absent cremasteric reflex. The testis is really tender and larger than its counterpart, that is larger than the other testes. So the testis is usually large in size and is usually tender. Presence sign is positive. So what is presence sign? Presence sign is that if you lift the testes in case of epididymoarchitis, if you lift the testes, it relieves the pain. Whereas in case of testicular torsion, if you lift the testes, you will not, the pain will not be relieved. This is called presence sign. So presence sign is positive. It means the pain doesn't go away when lifting up the testes. In case of epididymoarchitis, if you lift the testes up in the scrota with the help of your head, then the pain will be relieved. But in case of in case of testicular torsion, if you lift the testes, the pain will not be relieved. Manual detorsion. You can attempt the mean manual detorsion, that is the anti-clockwise direction. That is, if you find that the patient is in severe acne and the testis is mobile, then you can attempt the manual detorsion. Detorsion means the reversing the testis in the opposite direction of the torsion. This is called detorsion. So if you find a patient like this and you are experienced enough and you can appreciate that which way you will have to rotate, then you can attempt the manual detorsion. Otherwise you will not have to attempt the manual detorsion. So to aid in differential diagnosis of the acute scrotum, we can carry out some adjunctive tests and to confirm the absence of torsion of the cord. Doppler examination of the cord and testes is the investigation of the choice. Doppler examination, Doppler ultrasonography of the scrotum. This is the investigation of choice in case of the acute scrotum. Color Doppler gives you a very accurate assessment of the patient that is having the testicular torsion. Like color Doppler ultrasound assessment, it gives you the assessment of the anatomy and determining the presence or absence of the blood flow, and it has got very high sensitivity and specificity. Like sensitivity is about 88.9%, almost 89%, and specificity of almost 99%. So color Doppler ultrasonography has got a very good sensitivity and specificity, but it is operator dependent. So I assume that you people will be familiar with the sensitivity and specificity, that is what is sensitivity and what is specificity. So with the sensitivity of 89% and with the specificity of 99%, Doppler ultrasonography stands on the top of all the investigations to diagnose the testicular torsion. So radionuclide images can also be assessed. They are assessed for the blood flow of the scrotum. and it has got sensitivity PPV. It has got sensitivity of 75%, 90%. False impression from hyperemia of the scrotal wall. No help. It is not helpful in hydroceal and hematoma. So we usually do not carry these radionuclide scans. We just rely on the Doppler ultrasonography of scrotum because it has got high sensitivity and specificity for diagnosing the testicular torsion. Whereas in experienced hands, if you are experienced enough, then you can even appreciate the testicular torsion with your bare hands by your clinical assessment, that is of the high riding scrotum, high riding testis in the scrotum, that is testis is lying high up in the scrotum and it has got a transverse lie, and whereas the normal testis has got the vertical lie, and the other is that the testis is really swollen and tender, whereas the contralateral testis is normal. The major thing from which you will have to exclude this testicular torsion is the epididymoarchitis. Please keep one thing in mind, that in case of epididymoarchitis, patient will usually have a history of some urinary tract infection, that is cystitis or urethritis. Whereas in case of testicular torsion, patient does not give any of such history of urethritis or cystitis. And the other main differentiating point between epididymoarchitis and the testicular torsion is that the testicular torsion is usually sudden in the onset, whereas epididymoarchitis gradually develops over time and it then reaches the peak. So, testicular torsion and testicular torsion and epididymoarchitis need to be differentiated before exploring, because if you are exploring the patient with the diagnosis of the testicular torsion, then you will have to be 100% sure about the that the patient is suffering from testicular torsion. Here you can see the images, and this is the color Doppler image of the testes. Here you can see the blue vessels, the red vessels, the red vessel, red vessel, and the blue vessels. The red vessels show arteries, whereas these blue vessels are veins. So here you can appreciate that this testis has got a good blood supply, and this is probably the normal testis. Where, on the other hand, in the next corner of the figure, you can appreciate that this is another image which is of the contralateral testes, and it is not showing any vascularity. There are no vessels on color Doppler. You can see this blue and red vessels showing arteries and veins, whereas here you can see that in epididymis you can appreciate a vein over here, whereas in whole of the testicular parenchyma you are not having any sort of blood flow. So most likely one of his testes is having ischemia, and maybe due to this testicular torsion. So surgical exploration is the answer of the problem. That is, if you explore the patient surgically, a median raphe scrotal CN or a transverse CN is really given. The affected site should be examined first. The cord should be detossed. Whereas testes with marginal viability should be placed in warm sponge and re-examined after several minutes. So this is the main point, that you will have to explore the testes, and once you have explored the testes, you will have to go for the affected site first, and you will have to explore the testes. And if you find a borderline testis that it has come on the verge of the ischemia, then you just have to put a warm sponges to improve the vascularity, and then re-examine the patient after several years. necrotic testis should be removed. If the testis is to be preserved, it should be placed into the dartus pouch. So if the testis is preserved, if the testis is normal and it is not showing any signs of ischemia, then you can just put the testis into the you can put the testes into dartus pouch, and you can make the dartus pouch and fix the testes over there to prevent any future recurrence. So if the testis is to be preserved, it should be placed into the dartus pouch. The contralateral testis must be fixed to prevent subsequent torsion. So this is the main important point in the whole slide. That is, you will have to explore. You will have to go for the abnormal testis first. You will have to check for the viability of the testis, whether the testis is viable or not. And if you find that the testis is viable, then you will have to fix that in the dartus pouch. And if you find that the testis is not viable, then you will have to take consent from the patients if he is awake, or you will have to take consent from the attendants of the patient that you are going for the orchiectomy of the patient, because there is no fun of keeping an abnormal testis, and in future it will be a focus for the septicemia. And in the last, there is very important point that should be emphasized always. That is, if you are exploring a person for the testicular torsion, then you will have to detorse. You will have to fix the contralateral testis as well. That is, if you are dealing with the right testis and the right testis, and then you will have to first deal with the abnormal testis, and then you will have to go towards the left testis. You will have to fix that testis in the dartus pouch to prevent any future recurrence, any future problem in the contralateral testis. So this is a very good flow chart that shows history, physical examination, and urine analysis that you can carry out in patients with the torsion of the spermatic cord. If there is short duration of symptoms and negative urine analysis, high probability of torsion, that is, the patient is having short history. As I already told you, if the patient will be having epididymolysis, he will have a long history. Whereas if the patient is having short history and negative urine analysis. Negative urine analysis means there is no clue of epididymolysis. So short history, negative urine complete examination, strong suspicion of torsion, and surgical exploration is the only hope and is the only thing that you can offer to the patient. Whereas the long duration of symptoms and possible urine analysis, low probability of torsion. If the patient is having long duration of symptoms and also is having a positive urine examination for the urinary tract infection, then it shows that the patient might have epididymolysis. So, long duration of symptoms and positive urine analysis, low probability of torsion. And in this case, you will have to reconfirm it with color Doppler. If the color Doppler shows decreased or absent blood flow or equivocal results, then surgical exploration is mandatory. Whereas if the patient has got increased to normal blood flow, then non-operative management or observation is required. So short history and negative urine analysis. Short history, negative urine analysis shows testicular torsion. Long history and long duration symptoms and positive urine analysis. See, in case of confirmed testicular torsion, there is short history and there is negative urine analysis. Whereas in case of a patient who is being screened for testicular torsion, the patient will have a long duration of symptoms and will have a positive urine analysis for urinary tract infection. So color Doppler ultrasonography is the investigation of choice that can rule out testicular torsion. If there is decreased blood flow, then it will be labeled as testicular torsion, and if there is uh, increased to normal blood flow, then it will be labeled as non-operative. It will be labeled as epididymocarditis, and it usually needs non-operative treatment. So that's all from the testicular torsion. So it's an important topic, and if you can identify the things quite early, then you can proceed with this open surgery, and you can save the testes of the patient. But if you are not trained enough and you cannot appreciate, if you are not trained enough and you cannot appreciate the testicular torsion, and you cannot differentiate the testicular torsion from epididymocarditis, please don't keep that patient with you. Do refer him to some qualified person, some urologist, so that he can better assess whether the patient is having testicular torsion or whether the patient is having epididymocarditis. So next urological emergency is the epididymocarditis. We have already discussed a lot of things about epididymocarditis in the previous section of testicular torsion. So in case of epididymocarditis, there is indolent process, and it leads to the scrotal swelling, erythema, and pain. Scrotal swelling, edema, and pain. Whereas dysuria and fever is also much more common. So localized epididymal tenderness, a swollen and tender epididymis, or a massively swollen hemiscrotum with absence of landmarks. Premasteric reflex should be present. Whereas in case of testicular torsion, the premasteric reflex is absent. In case of epididymocarditis, the premasteric reflex is usually present. In case we carry out the urine analysis, it will give us pyuria, bacteriuria, or a positive urine culture. So what is the management of a patient with epididymocarditis? Usually bed rest for 1 to 3 days, then the relative restriction, scrotal elevation, the use of an athletic supporter, and parenteral antibiotic therapy should be instituted when UTI is documented or suspected, because UTI is a febrile illness and it severely impairs the health of the person. When the patient is suffering from epididymocarditis, any sort of urethral instrumentation should be avoided. So, bed rest for 1 to 3 days, then relative restriction, scrotal elevation, the use of athletic supporter, parenteral antibiotic therapy should be instituted when UTI is documented or suspected, and urethral instrumentation should be avoided. As we have already seen that the urological emergencies are broadly divided into two types, urological emergencies, non-traumatic and traumatic. So we have almost covered the whole of our non-traumatic emergencies like hematuria, renal colic, urinary retention, and acute scrotum. This fifth number, priapism, is really beyond your scope, so we are not touching it. Next comes the traumatic emergencies. Traumatic emergencies are also 5 types. One is renal injuries, the other is urethral injuries, third is bladder injuries, the fourth is urethral injuries, and 5 are the testicular injuries. So let's briefly have an idea about the uh, renal injuries. So the kidneys are relatively protected from the traumatic injuries because of their position. That is, kidneys are very closely linked to the spinal cord and spine, and it is anteriorly, laterally, and posteriorly very well protected from the abdominal walls and also from the rib cage. So, kidneys are lying deep in the retroperitoneum, and usually a front blow or an accident or trauma from front side. This is really well tolerated, and in case of renal injury to cause, considerable degree of force is really required to injure a kidney because it is very well protected, lying in the retroperitoneum. So there are broadly two types of mechanism that can cause injury to the kidney. One is blunt, the other is penetrating. The blunt blow or acceleration and road traffic accidents that fall from height or fall onto flank. So blunt injuries are usually caused by his height, fall from the height, and also from the road traffic accidents. Whereas penetrating injuries like knife, gunshots, iatrogenic, example given percutaneous nephrolithotomies. So sharp injuries are usually caused, or penetrating injuries are usually caused by knives and gunshots. So, what are the indications when you will carry out the renal imaging? This is very important that when you will have to intervene, and what are the factors that you will consider, and to whom you will refer the patient if this is beyond your scope. So, indications for renal imaging are macroscopic hematuria, penetrating chest, flank, and abdominal pain. Microscopic hematuria are more than 5 per dipsticks. So, microscopic more than 5 red bloods per Hyper field or dipstick hematuria in case of hypotensive patient. A history of a rapid acceleration or deceleration, that is, you will have a clear-cut history of whether the patient is having a blunt trauma or penetrating injury. Any child with microscopic or dipstick hematuria who has sustained trauma. So any patient who has got a blow on the retroperitoneum should undergo this ultrasound KUB, get done, because later on it may save the life of the patient. If you will ignore initially, you can be in trouble if you ignore initially to the renal injuries, because kidneys are very vascular structure. So in case of renal injuries, what you can offer to the patient, we can ask him to get an IVU done, but this IVU is usually replaced by CTKUB. So, what are the staging? What is the staging of the patients which sustain these renal injuries? Usually, the kidneys are graded into 1 to 5 grades depending upon the injury. Grade 1 is the injury that is present on the Girota's fascia, just beneath the Girota's fascia. It means it is not going inside the kidney, and it is just present on the renal capsule. The other second grade 2 injury is also present, is confined to the kidney and is present within the Girota's fascia, but you can see that renal cortex is also invaded, that the renal cortex has been damaged. This is called grade 2. In grade 1, there is no renal cortical injury and there is only subcapsular hematoma. In case of grade 2, there is subcapsular hematoma and subcapsular hematoma, and there is injury that is going on into the renal cortex as well. In case of grade 3, we have got expanding hematoma that is lying within the Girotas fascia, but you can appreciate that the cleavage has reached the renal collecting system. So, in case of grade 1, only uh, hematoma just beneath the Girotas fascia. In case of grade 2, uh, there is an incised wound in the cortex of the kidney, whereas in case of grade 3, the injury has reached up to the renal pelvis, whereas grade 4 has got more deep injury and subcapsular hematoma. Whereas in case of grade 5, the patient is either having multiple grade 4 injuries. So please listen carefully. Grade 5 in case of renal tumor is grade 5 injury in case of renal tumor is whether you have sustained multiple grade 4 injuries or you have got pedicle avulsion. Here you can appreciate the pedicle avulsion. So this is the normal kidney, and this is the kidney which has got trauma. So here you can appreciate that the pedicle, renal pedicle, which constitute the renal artery and vein, that has been avulsed. So this is a non-functional kidney. This is a non-viable kidney. You just have to take it out. So grade 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So you can appreciate that grade 5 has got multiple grade 4 injuries that will constitute a grade 5 injury. Whereas in case of grade 5 injury, you can also have an expanding hematoma and avulsion of the renal pedicle. So how will you manage a patient with lethal injury? How will you tell it? Luckily, the renal trauma mostly is managed through the conservative management. That is, overall, the 95% of blood injuries they are managed conservatively. 50% of renal stab injuries and 25% of renal gunshot wounds they are also managed conservatively. So, in the latest figures, it shows that over 80% patients, that is over 95% of patients with blunt injuries, they usually do not require exploration. It means that the renal trauma, we can manage most of the patients with renal trauma conservatively. 95% is a handsome figure. That is, if you have got 95 suspected renal injury patients, then you will have only 5% of the patient that we will have to explore. Otherwise, 95% patients can be managed conservatively. In case of blunt injuries, whereas 50% of the penetrating injuries and 25% of gunshot injuries, they can also be managed conservatively. The conservative management usually includes wide bore IV line, IV antibiotics, bed rest, serial CBCs to see for the hematocrit, because if the HB will be low, the hematocrit will rise. So wide bore IV line, IV antibiotics, bed rest, and serial CBCs to rule out hematocrit, because hematocrit rises whenever the CBC, whenever the blood is thick, then hematocrit will rise. Follow-up ultrasound or CT can be done, and follow-up should be continued for at least 2 to 3 weeks. So conservative management of the patients with the renal injuries include 95% of blood injuries are managed conservatively, 50% of renal stab injuries and 25% of renal gunshot wounds are managed conservatively. Whereas the treatment includes wide bore IV line, IV antibiotics, rest, serial CBCs, follow-up ultrasound or CT, and follow-up should be done every 2 to 3 weeks. So in case of surgical bleeding, what are the indications when you will have to explore the patient? So some of the indications are persistent bleeding, that is persistent tachycardia and or hypotension, failing to respond to appropriate fluid and blood replacement, expanding perirenal hematoma again in the patient will show signs of continued bleeding. Pulsatile perirenal hematoma. So these are some of the indications of surgical exploration. That is, whenever you will have to go for the surgery, you will have to think, you will have to keep in mind that there are certain indications of exploration. If these indications are not met, then you should not explore. So these indications are persistent bleeding, persistent tachycardia and or hypotension, failing to respond to appropriate fluid and blood replacement, expanding perirenal hematoma. Patient will show signs of continued bleeding and pulsatile perirenal hematoma. So these are some of the prerequisites for the renal injury exploration. So this is a flow chart that is showing that is how you will have to proceed in case of a renal injury. So this is trauma, and in case of trauma, you can divide the trauma into two. You can divide the trauma into two categories. That is blunt and penetrating. So in case of blunt injuries, if there is microscopic hematuria and no shock, so selective renal imaging can be done and it shows not extensive injury, so clinical follow-up is required. Whereas in case of blunt injuries, if there is hematuria, gross or microscopic associated with shock, that is systolic blood pressure, SBP, systolic blood pressure is less than 90, it means the patient is going into ischemic shock. So if there is the patient is having hematuria, microscopic or gross hematuria associated with shock, then patient is unstable and abdominal exploration is mandatory. Then single shot IVP on table can be carried out. If this is abnormal or inconclusive, then renal exploration should be done. So these are the indications, that is macro or microscopic hematuria with the shock, unstable patient, and exploratory laparotomy is planned by the general surgery. Then on table you will have to take a single shot IVP, which will show that whether your contralateral kidney is functioning properly or not. If your contralateral kidney is functioning properly, then you will have to you can remove the kidney safely if the contralateral kidney is functional. But if the contralateral kidney is also compromised, then you will have to try your best to save the kidney. Otherwise, the patient will end up in dialysis. Penetrating injuries, hematuria, microscopic or gross hematuria. In case of penetrating injuries, if the patient is having a gross hematuria, or the patient is having microscopic hematuria of more than 7 blood cells per minute. And if the penetrating injury and patient is stable, and then you can go for abdominal CT or CT scan or IV optional. Grade 3 to 5 injuries and selective renal exploration can be done. So in case of hematuria, microscopic or gross in case of blunt injuries. And the patient is stable or unstable, you can categorize into both. If the patient is stable, then abdominal CT can be carried out. And then if it shows class 3 to 5 injuries, then you can go for selective renal exploration. Whereas if the patient is unstable, then you can go for abdominal exploration, single shot IVP, on table abdominal or inclusive, and there is renal exploration. So today we had a detailed lecture on two very important topics. One is the testicular torsion or acute stroke. So it has got a flow chart. Let's revise it again. History, physical examination, and urine analysis, short duration of symptoms and negative urine analysis. There is high probability of torsion, and you will have to go for surgical exploration. Long duration of symptoms and positive urine analysis, low probability of torsion, color Doppler ultrasonography can be carried out and it shows decrease or absent blood flow or equivocal results. Then you will have to go for surgical exploration. Whereas if there is increased or normal blood flow, and then non-operative management should be considered. So non-operative management and surgical exploration, these are the two options which can be done in case of the torsion of the testes. So let's again briefly review the flow chart of the renal trauma. Renal trauma can be divided into two broad categories, blunt and penetrating. And in case of blunt injury, if there is hematuria, microscopic, and patient is not having any shock, then selective renal imaging can be done. Clinical follow-up is required. Whereas if the patient is having hematuria, gross or microscopic associated with shock, the patient is unstable, then you will have to go for abdominal exploration. Single shot IVP should be done on the table. And if it's abnormal or inconclusive, then renal exploration should be done. In case of penetrating injuries, patient may have hematuria, gross or microscopic, and the patient is stable, then you should go for CT. And if CT shows 3 or 5, grade 3 or grade 5 injuries, then you will have to go for surgical exploration. It is not mandatory to go for exploration in case of 1 or 2 traumatic injuries. And if the patient is unstable, then obviously you will have to go for the exploration. So that's all from today. Today we have discussed two important topics, that is the testicular torsion and renal trauma. So, so I welcome if you can go for any questions. Uh, so, question. So, if you have got any question, you can ask me on the text.